Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Tara Parker Pope. I'm a health columnist with the New York Times, and I'm really thrilled to be here today to talk about the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. I'm here with the man who needs no introduction, Michael J. Fox. He is co-founder with Debi Brooks, who is the co-founder and CEO. So hopefully today we're going to have a great conversation about the foundation, about patients, about patient empowerment, and just where we go from here, the next steps for patient advocacy and Parkinson's research. So Michael, I think a question that, everybody likes to start conversations with these days is, how has your pandemic been going? What's been going on with you during the pandemic?
Our family's pandemic is progressing on pace with everyone else's. I'm just so you know, I'm double vaccinated and with a booster, and I had my antibodies checked, and I'm fairly okay for that. And so I'm good. I can be in an elevator with Virginia and be okay. And it's good. The family's all good. It's been a really interesting time. Obviously, it's you're not often aware. I like to be aware of where we are standing vis-a-vis the virus. But just everybody checking on everybody's health is just really interesting. Everybody, like, how are you? We say, how are you? We mean, how are you? How are you? How are you proceeding through this? And we're doing good. We're all doing great.
I think you make such a good point. I do feel like this is the first time in my lifetime that when I'm greeted by somebody and they say, how are you? They actually want to know the answer. It's not just a quick hello.
The other piece I notice is that a lot of correspondence ends with stay safe. So even it's not just the greeting, but it's the well wishes as you go wherever you're headed. And so I do think there's this kind of hyper attention to health and medicine and science. That's, it'll be interesting to see in what veracity it sticks. But it's definitely, you see it everywhere today.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we're in a new kind of era with health and wellness and well-being and patient advocacy and just, in fact, feeling patient, an empowered patient. And so that leads to my next question, Michael. I mean, I personally feel changed by the pandemic. I'm wondering if you think that the conversation around health and well-being and of patient empowerment is any different now. Do you think that it's changed for us as a community?
Excuse me. Yeah, I think it has changed. I think that again, not the broader political landscape is we're not dealing with that, and that's not a major concern. But there is the thing about disease and viruses and things like this. They're facts. That's just a fact. That's just a fact that this thing is out there and it's killing people and it's been mutating. It's to kill more people, and we have to rally all our forces and meet it. And if we don't accept the truth, then I always say about people say, how do you deal with Parkinson's? And I say, well, I accept it. And it doesn't mean I can't endeavor to change it, but I have to accept it on its face. And that's the way we are with this pandemic. We've been forced to face it. It is what it is. And so then what do we do going forward? But that has been such a, so I'll agree on a truth. To a large extent, and say it's a need that needs to be met, and we can meet it. We need to work on it together, and the fact that they came up with a vaccine in such a short amount of time. I mean, just applied science is effective. Applied science with the support of the populace is unstoppable. I mean, we have the information, we have the knowledge, we have the resources. We just need to marshal them and assign them correctly and be in agreement of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, Debbie, what do you think about this issue of how the pandemic is changing the healthcare conversation, and particularly our relationship with pharmaceutical companies and this issue of trust with our medical providers? What do you think about that?
What I see is that we are kind of living two sides of this. Certainly, the increase in science and health literacy has definitely gone up. To imagine the fluency with which people discuss the different kinds of vaccines and an appreciation for a vaccine, meaning to prevent or dramatically reduce the impact versus treatments. I mean, all these terms take on a real personal meaning and kind of a collective understanding that I think is welcome. And has been, it sets a stage for continued conversations, and it builds on prior ones, such as, things that, knowledge that comes out of things like the Human Genome Project. So to me, this is an important step forward for health and science literacy, and also empowerment for wellness and protection. At the same time, we do face a world where not everybody believes in the same set of facts. And it's a time where it's baffling to think about how to elevate trust in science. We're both having incredible trust and guarded at best reactions. So it's a tricky time, but I think for us in our work and for our population, we stick with sharing as much facts and also context to support information so that people can make smart decisions about their own medical decisions and consult with their doctors, whether it's around a pandemic or how to live well with their Parkinson's disease.
One thing that has happened during this pandemic is that we've been spending a lot of time on Zoom. We've been spending a lot of time on our laptops and our iPads communicating with other people. Has this had any impact? I know that the foundation has done some work with connecting patients with research. I think I saw something about a digital sort of onboarding. Can you tell me a little bit more about how maybe technology can help in bridging the gap between patients and researchers and finding answers?
It's a quick comment. The foundation did it. I mean, extra me. They did this. They did a tremendous job pivoting and when all this started to go down. To keep patients engaged, to keep researchers engaged, to keep connected and keep it alive, so that they're easy to roll back into it. They did an extraordinary job.
Well, I think one of the things that we saw, thanks, Mike, we had already, part of our strategy was to appreciate that the main reason we didn't have the treatments we wanted for Parkinson's wasn't that, for instance, pharma didn't care about trying to improve treatments, or that academia wasn't interested in Parkinson's. It's that we just don't have enough information. And, to kind of piece together elements of what we've already highlighted here is that we committed early to building on-ramps to really try to bridge that gap. And while some of those on-ramps are face-to-face, they are substantially digital, because our best way to parse the heterogeneity of Parkinson's disease and get real meaningful information in the hands of treatment sponsors is to really better understand exactly what Parkinson's is, how it's changing over time, how patients are responding to possible treatments. And we need to get that at scale. So part of our agenda has long been to standardize and centralize data collection from patients. And we do it a handful of ways. But during COVID, we really appreciated that those tools already set us up for additional support for the patient community. Probably the thing that we did last year that I think will have the longest impact is we established a buddy network. So in this case, it wasn't so much patient data to researchers' hands. This was actually a way to connect people to other people in the Parkinson's patient community. We've been doing that for years through our Team Fox network, where people meet at community events as fundraisers like walks or garden parties or marathons. But the buddy network, not everybody's going to put their rah-rah suit on and run out to an event in their community, or there may not be something in their community. The buddy network is really more of a one-on-one moment where you establish a profile, and it really enabled us to put in digital format something we've been doing informally for years, which is to connect someone who's is at a certain inflection point in their Parkinson's journey to other people. I'm going to put this in quotes, like them. And it's kind of interesting to hear a Parkinson's patient over a 2 to 3 to 4 decade journey with the disease. The arcs of who they're interested in connecting with and what like them means is also not a single answer. It's people who are recently diagnosed want to talk to each other about how they're managing this. People who are still working but have Parkinson's and are trying to navigate their careers. People who are a little bit further along and considering new treatments or a change in treatment like deep brain stimulation. But sometimes it's just like, I'm a golfer and I really want to keep playing golf, so I'd much rather play with Parkinson's patients. So the Buddy Network to me was a great moment to formalize that interaction and strengthen the community at a time where people were going to be even more than naturally isolated. And, when you complement that with our work on the policy side to support things like telemedicine, it really, it was a bridge to try to support the community at a specific time.
I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and I wanted to talk to other people about their experiences. But as I started talking to people, I was hearing some people were in a different headspace than I was in. I wanted to find the right match. So even within that patient community, finding someone like you is hard. And it's good to just keep reaching out and talking to people. I'm curious, Michael, for you, I would think that being a celebrity at the time of your diagnosis, and I mean, how is it for you? Do you find an interest? Are you interested in meeting other patients with Parkinson's? Do you find it? Tell me more about that for you.
I was diagnosed for 7 years before I told anybody. So I'd kind of gone through it a lot, worked on it a lot, and arrived at a pretty good place where I really go forward. And so there's a privacy to it. There's a personal side of it. It's just your thing, and it's your thing to try to work through and understand and live with. But I speak to probably 20, 30 newly diagnosed people a year who the foundation will call me or someone will call me and say, can you call so-and-so? And usually a great degree of them are high profile people.
Let's talk a little bit about when you put the patient at the center of care, when you amplify a patient's voice. I know some people are afraid of that. I think some healthcare workers, some doctors feel like you don't want to give a patient too much power over their care. I think there's a real misunderstanding. I know on the well section in the New York Times, we've always believed in, we have a series called Patient Voices because we think there's power in patients telling their stories. I'm curious what you think is, what's the biggest misunderstanding out there about a patient-centered approach? I mean, I think the evidence says that it leads to better outcomes, but I'm curious, Michael, do you think that there's a misunderstanding about the benefit of a patient-centered approach to care?
I just think there was a scarceness of consideration of it. I don't think that the patients. I mean, from a scientific point of view, it's a problem. It's a problem to be solved. It's a problem to be solved. It's math to be done. It's science to be done. It's from a pharmaceutical point of view. It's how much investment, how much return. And all those concerns there's no room for patients to get in there. It's not they're more than a problem. They're more than a business goal or a data point. I mean, they're people, so it's complicated. People are complicated. People come with a lot of other stuff. They just come with what you need. You can just take that and they go away. They can bring you over other stuff, and you have to consider that. And there's answers in that other stuff. Mm-hmm. That's what's important. And so we need to assert that position that we are part of the answer. That we are, after all, the greatest researcher in Parkinson's at some Augusta University. Doesn't know as much about Parkinson's as I do. I know more, and unless he has it. Then he does, but until then, I'm the expert on it. Can't put it into his language, and I can't give him the answers, but I can tell him what the situation is, and I think that's really the issue. It's finding a natural place for patients, whether it's in clinical trials and making themselves available for that, whether it's making themselves available for debriefings and what their stories are, but I just think it's going to happen. The patients are going to be involved in the solutions to this. You just can't do it without them. You can't. It's like operating a body that's not on the table.
I think for us, it, I find that patients are miss an element for why don't things move faster? Why is this so hard? And to be able to inform the patient community about what the real challenges are in getting to better treatments, I find just that knowledge for them is empowering. And so to me, it's a little bit about patient voice, and it may be a different consideration in the care setting, but in the getting to better treatments business where we find ourselves, when you help a patient see that these challenges are center around some things that they actually can play a big role in overcoming, I find that to be pretty empowering. Hence, this is why we've built these platforms for data collection and data sharing and increasingly data analysis. And the patients get excited and appreciate. You can really put more context around the challenges, and then they want to help make a difference. And what I have found, probably the best example of this for us, is about 10 years ago, we started a natural history study where we're looking at Parkinson's patients as close to the moment as possible of being diagnosed. And over time, we went from 600 subjects, 400 patients, 200 controls. We've expanded it to about 1,200 subjects, and we're in the process now of expanding it to 4,000 subjects. And the amount of knowledge that has come from the earliest participants in that study and the expanded cohorts that have been added, it's transformed the knowledge of the field, trying to parse the heterogeneity and looking at, and now showing us new information about who's at high risk for getting Parkinson's. And we've already identified, some early detection models in these prodromal cohorts. And which leads to being able to think about prevention of Parkinson's. And when patients who have participated in this study, which by the way is not a non-trivial commitment, I happen to be a control, so I've done it firsthand myself for the last 10 years. I've had 8 lumbar punctures. I've been assessed in all the ways I can imagine. I've had neuroimaging. There's so much pride. There's so much pride for the patients who participated in this longitudinal study, because the output, they can see and they hear directly from drug makers how this new information is helping design trials, how it's helping identify the right kind of patients to be recruiting into different treatment trials. And it's just empowering. And so to me, the concept of patient voice sometimes can feel a little quaint and, we'll let patients get their foot in the door and hope that they don't complain about drug prices. We don't talk about it that way. We think about the value of patient information and what it can bring to the drug development process, and that an empowered patient is really not only providing data, but steps into the clinical trial apparatus and speeds results. And to Mike's point, those are the results they're looking for. And so amplifying the way in which the patient can partner with the different stakeholders across the whole community and the ecosystem of, aha moment to drugstore shelf, to me is what can be transformative. And we've just seen firsthand how bringing these various constituents together in a strategic and mindfully, impact-oriented way has helped change the landscape for Parkinson's drug development in the last 20 years. It's not all because of this, but it is substantially enhanced because of these efforts.
Michael, I'd love to give you the final word, the closing thought about where you would like to, what you would like our listeners to take home from this conversation about the patient experience, about the human experience, and about being a medical provider, about being a pharmaceutical company. What's your message?
I don't know if I'm going to put on one message, but when I started this, Debi, 20 years ago, 20 years ago?
21, actually. Yeah.
We didn't know what we were doing. I mean, we didn't know what we faced. We didn't know what we were going into. We just had this idea that we could pick up on some of the energy around people's identification with me, and then move the ball forward in this field. So we started, and I started to realize that there was that there was this concept of Parkinson's as being, people didn't think about it. It was the grandmother and the grandfather on the porch at the nursing home, rocking and shaking, and it just didn't relate to them. And it was the person at the elevator you're waiting for forever to push the button and get on, and it was that. There's that for me too. When I was diagnosed, though, I saw it's like when you're pregnant. My wife said when you're pregnant, there's baby carriage everywhere. When you see baby carriages, so all I saw was people with Parkinson's and people, and I started to realize that younger people had it too, and there were people that were in a position. The older people weren't politically and socially and they weren't in a position to be activists, to be their own advocates. They were marginalized, and I thought that there's a more vital population here. They can work with those people and include them in, but fire this up and really be their own advocates and push us forward. And so I thought I need to be part of that. I heard a scientist say to me in Washington, the science is ahead of the money. And once I grasped that concept, the science is ahead of money. We have more information than we could pay for, and we just need to get it. And so I thought, well, we'll pay for it. So we've raised towards research in these 21 years over $1 billion. And now that's 20 years, $1 billion is you'd like to think that win you the game, but it doesn't. It takes a lot more money and a lot more time. But we can see the light, and we're gonna keep pushing it.
Well, I want to thank both of you for this great conversation. Thank you, Debbie, for all your hard work at the foundation, and Michael for being a continued source and advocate for a source of inspiration and advocate for patients everywhere, and also for just all the great entertainment you've given us over the years. You're much loved, and so we really appreciate all that you continue to do. So thank you both.
Thank you.